All right, let's dive right into this explainer and completely demystify the somewhat intimidating world of mobile phone repair. We carry these little supercomputers in our pockets literally all day, every day. But for most of us, the exact second they stop working, they just become these mysterious, frustrating black boxes.
Think about the last time your phone broke or started acting up. It feels like absolute magic when it works perfectly and, let's be honest, total panic when it doesn't. But today, we're going to strip away that magic. We are going to treat your device like a patient on an operating table and uncover exactly how it functions, how it breaks, and most importantly, how to fix it.
So we've got a highly structured procedure ahead of us. We'll be moving through 6 steps. First, inside your mobile phone. Then hazards and repair tools, disassembly and assembly steps, diagnosing the problem, fixing common hardware faults, and finally, troubleshooting software issues. Let's get right into it. Part 1. Inside your mobile phone, the anatomy. Let's make our first incision and take a look at the vital organs powering your device.
It's amazing how densely packed yet perfectly organized a phone's motherboard really is. It's divided into clear, purposeful zones. Take the power section, for instance. You have the power IC, which basically acts as the heart, pumping energy from the battery to every other part of the phone. Then you have the flash IC. Think of that as the memory bank. It securely stores your software and all the programs you've got installed. And then there are these incredibly specialized little parts, like the oscillator. When you're trying to reach someone, this tiny component is what generates the specific frequency to make that outgoing connection actually happen. Without it, well, your phone is basically just a really expensive offline calculator.
Moving on to Part 2, hazards and repair tools, prepping for surgery. Because before we start poking around inside these delicate electronics, we really need to talk about the tools of the trade and the actual hazards of opening up a mobile phone.
The crucial thing to remember here is that you're dealing with live electricity, extreme heat, and potentially toxic chemicals. It's not just snapping building blocks together, right? To prevent burns, you absolutely must use well-insulated tools and be super mindful of where you place your soldering iron. To avoid getting pricked by sharp objects or tiny wires, proper storage is key. And crucially, this is a big one, to protect yourself from toxic fumes when melting metal, you have to ensure good ventilation in your workspace. Safety always comes first.
This process really requires a wild level of precision. Soldering is basically applying intense heat to melt a filler metal, the solder, to securely and conductively bind microscopic components to the green circuit board. It's intense. One wrong move, just a tiny slip, and boom, you've short-circuited the whole system.
As you get deeper into repair manuals, you'll definitely start hearing a lot of jargon. A major term you'll run into is reballing. Reballing simply means performing a delicate transplant on a single, tiny, defective chip. You carefully lift it off, apply fresh lead-based solder to create tiny new contact points, and then replace it on the circuit board to give it a fresh connection. It's literally microsurgery for your tech.
All right, Part 3, disassembly and assembly steps, the procedure. Let's shift to the active operation and see how this builds into a safe, step-by-step teardown and reassembly.
Notice how incredibly logical this flow is. First, step 1, we strip it down to the studs by fully removing the power, meaning the battery, SIM, and memory cards. Step 2, we remove all the screws and lift the cover. Step 3, carefully detach the delicate component strips like the display and camera. After we make our fixes, we hit step 4 and reassemble the motherboard and internals. Now, crucially, this is step 5, we test the LCD screen before placing the final screen. You never, ever want to glue everything down only to realize your display is unresponsive. Finally, step 6, replace the battery and its cover.
Which brings us to Part 4, diagnosing the problem, running the labs. You see, you can't cure a patient if you don't know the disease. If a phone is malfunctioning, we need to properly diagnose the circuit board.
We use 2 main methods for this, and the difference between them is night and day. First, there's cold testing. This is done with absolutely zero power supply to the phone. You use a tool called a multimeter to check the baseline resistance across components, basically to see if a circuit is physically broken. Hot testing, on the other hand, is done while the phone is actively powered by a battery or a direct current. This method allows you to track the live voltage of damaged parts while the device is fully awake.
Now for Part 5, fixing common hardware faults, the cure. Once we have our diagnosis, we finally arrive at the actual cures for the physical hardware faults that drive us crazy.
Take a dropped network signal, for example. We apply a really strict if this, then that escalation logic.
You don't just immediately tear the phone apart. First, insert the SIM in another phone to isolate the issue. If it's not the SIM, manually search for the network in your settings. If that fails, okay, then you open the phone and clean the antenna tips. Still offline, you escalate your operation to heating or changing the antenna switch. And if all else completely fails, you escalate all the way up to reballing or changing the main network IC chip.
Overheating is another super common issue, and as you map out the workflow for this one, notice how you always rule out software stress before jumping in with a hot soldering iron. First, close all your applications and run them one at a time to see if a specific app is just overloading the processor. Next, try upgrading the operating system. If it's still burning up, then you open the device to check the logic board for physical short circuits. Only if the damage is severe do you take the drastic step of replacing the entire logic board.
Finally, Part 6. Troubleshooting software issues, fixing the brain. Because sometimes the hardware is perfectly fine, the circuits are absolutely pristine, but the phone's digital brain is malfunctioning.
If your phone keeps freezing or hanging, you've got to play detective. First, check your recently downloaded applications and note if a specific app routinely causes the crash when it's running. If you track down the rogue app causing the memory leak, just remove it. And if the phone is still hanging after that, well, if all else fails, you wipe the slate clean with a factory reset and a fresh software update. But what if the software corruption is deeper than just a bad app? A fantastic, honestly kind of surprising insider trick is to open your dial pad and press *#06#. It feels like accessing a hidden developer menu. This brings up your phone's 15-digit International Mobile Equipment Identity, or IMEI number. If the resulting number looks totally garbled, has missing characters, or is just full of question marks, you instantly know you're dealing with a deep identity software corruption that requires specialized tools to rewrite. And that brings us to the end of our procedure. So, next time your screen goes black or your network continuously drops, what's your first move going to be? Will you just throw your hands up and buy a brand new device, or will you troubleshoot it? Now that you understand the basic anatomy, the tools required, and the step-by-step logic behind diagnosing and repairing these faults, you hold the power to bring your own tech back to life. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.